Welcome in Working with Foam Board Part 8. Today we will explain how we create cobblestones, and actually it is a part of our water tower project. We have already prepared an octagon shape to start pressing our cobblestones, and you hear it well. It is also pressing like we did for our brick wall, but this time we got the right shape to press a cobblestone. We have already marked our borders of the water tower, but before we start printing, we create first the curbstone on the edges of our plate. Therefore, we use a steel pen to start creating. With a steel pen, we start engraving our lines, and the distance is about 2 millimeters. We try to engrave not too hard, not scratching, but we do it in a small angle by let it slide. During the engravings, we start making some sections to imitate the parts of the curbstones. We created already several engravings here to imitate the side of the stones. Also on the corner we make a little engraving, but actually it is not a real engraving, it's more a kind of a pressure. We press the steel pen in the foam to create our engraving of our right shape, and also we let it fit with the lines on top. The engravings on top of our plate are connected with the previously supplied line. To print our cobblestones, we use an old brush with removed hairs. And a good brush in this case is a brush number 3. The aluminium shaft of the old brush we give a rectangular shape. And the rectangular shape doesn't need to be perfect. In reality, the sides of the cobblestone are also not really perfect. A little variation is no problem. Here you see a close-up to show really exactly what I mean. We start printing our cobblestones in the same way as we print our brick walls. But here we don't need a ruler. The distance is actually too small to use a ruler. We can do it by freehand. By the start of every new row of stones, we shift or jump half a stone. The place where you can't use the brush, we engrave it with the steel pen. That is much easier to prevent overlapping stones here on the corner. So, our cobblestones are printed. On the side of our piece we press or make little pits with the steel pen to create a more realistic look of our side stones. The base color of our cobblestones is painted with Humbrol number 28. We use 2 layers of paint to finish the job and let it dry well each time again. Also the side stones we paint in the same color. Next step is bring on a layer of black wash. We make that wash with the brand Vallejo. and we use for that matte black. Now it is important not to make it intense, not to overexposure. It's better to build it up in several layers, otherwise there is no turning back. The way we're working is actually just the same as we did before. We mix our wash, our black wash, well, and try to prevent the dirt on the bottom of our bucket. And in that way we can safely spread out our wash over the total surface. And it is important to try to do it in one move. Once the wash is getting drier, the problem exists that you get darker spots. Use enough of the black wash to let it flow between the small gaps to create a better relief. So, also an important thing is the side stones itself. We use the same wash as we do for the cobblestones, and we use the same brush, of course, a flat brush. And also here we foresee to let the wash spread well, especially the corners and the small gaps. And once this is done, this small piece is almost completely done and finished. As I just told, the best result is by spreading the wash really well. Try to reach every little gap on the total surface of our piece. With a small brush, we try to fill up the gaps between the cobblestones with black powder, black pigment powder, from the brand MIG. And we try to do it just filling up the gaps itself, not the cobblestones on its own. We now try to spread the pigments between the narrow gap, between the narrow line, and try to prevent to bring on pigments on the top of the cobblestone. We do it repeatedly with going over the gap, as you can see. We try to prevent to get pigments on top of our cobblestone. We make our stones look paler by sanding it with a sandpaper of 600, and we sand it by making little circles. In that way we accentuate the structure of the foam. Also on the side we bring on some pigments in the small gaps. Once this is done, we can sand the corner of our plate and make it a bit paler. To finish our job, we bring on some pigments in the corner and in front of our stone. Therefore we use the pigment from the brand Vallejo, number 73109. So, our water tower finally received his food pot. And in this way, this episode gets to an end. This was it for this time. In next episode, we will explain how we make natural stone walls. Until then,